Hi all, welcome. We're so glad to have you. I know there's people filtering in, so please come take your seats. I'm Catherine Catcher, and this is Dominic Taylor. We are from Root and Rebound. We're one of the co-sponsoring groups of the event today. And Root and Rebound is a reentry legal resource center that works statewide across California to provide people in reentry and people with criminal records with the tools and resources they need to overcome legal barriers and structural barriers in reentry. Particularly for today, I would say that a lot of our work is focused on barriers to employment and barriers to higher education. So it is very wonderful to be here today at an event that's all about formerly incarcerated students and families and getting people on the path to higher ed, employment, and success in reentry. We are really excited to have you all here today. This has been a dream of ours as an organization that does a lot of education and training for formerly incarcerated people and their families. It's been a dream of ours to have a 2-day summit where people could come together for 2 dedicated days to talk about these issues, learn from each other, connect, share resources, and really create reentry infrastructure where there isn't a lot of infrastructure, and do the job that the government really should be doing to provide more support for people in reentry. So we are really happy that we're all coming together to create the kind of support that should be there for people with records so that they can actually overcome barriers and get on the pathway to success. I'm now going to introduce Dominic Taylor, who is a staff attorney with us, who's been the lead on this event. And before I introduce him, I really want to thank Root and Rebound staff, DOMs, particularly Dominic, Cara, and Aisha, who've been huge helps and have been dedicated months to running this event. So I just want to say a big thank you to Dom, all of our volunteers that are here today, our community partners, our corporate sponsors. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Good morning, y'all. As Catherine said, my name's Dom Taylor. I'm a staff attorney at Root and Rebound. And I'm just going to give y'all a little bit of a sort of a summary of how we got here, and then I'm going to introduce a very good colleague and a friend of mine, Ron Moss. But I first met Ron and was introduced to Street Scholars back in August of 2016. Had a phone call with Ron, Earthy, and Luana, and we said, hey, we hear you're doing great things over at Merritt College. We hear you're trying to create a prison-to-school pipeline, get folks with records, formerly incarcerated folks, trying to get them good higher education, employment, and we want to do something with y'all. We didn't know that it would culminate with a 2-day summit, our first annual, because this is definitely something we'd certainly like to bring back to Merritt College every single year. But over the last few months, I've got to know Ron and the staff at Street Scholars remarkably well. A lot of long meetings, a lot of brainstorming and powwows, and what I can say is there's not too many folks I've ever met who are as passionate and dedicated to bettering their community, bettering lives for folks here in Oakland, for folks in Alameda County, then Ron Moss, then Earthy and Luana, and all the folks at the Gamble Institute and at Street Scholars. So with that being said, I just wanted to briefly introduce Mr. Ronald Moss, the Executive Director of the Street Scholars Program and of the Gamble Institute here at Merritt College. And I just wanted to thank the staff of the Gamble Institute and all of the students, such as Drew, and all the helpful volunteers and supporters. We really appreciate the love over the last few months, and we're excited to get these 2 days kicked off. So without further ado, Ron Moss.
Good morning. This is an exciting day. As Dom said, my name is Ron Moss. I am the Executive Director of the Gamble Institute, and our flagship program is the Street Scholars Peer Mentoring Program. That program was piloted here on the Merritt College campus in the spring of 2014, so we've been around for a while. But the level of impact that we've had has been primarily on the Merritt College campus, and this is what I would consider our first community endeavor, and so I am really excited that you were all here. I look forward to a couple of days of sharing and caring and understanding the challenges that the formerly incarcerated students that I serve and that my staff, Earthy and Lawana and Drew, whom Don mentioned, who this doesn't happen without them. So I'm just so grateful to have such a strong team who was willing to commit their time and their energy and their effort to furthering the success of the formerly incarcerated students that we endeavor to serve. With that said, you'll have plenty of time to hear from me and talk to me. Street Scholars is a program for formerly incarcerated adults created by formerly incarcerated adults. So all of our language, our program model, everything that we do is informed by the experience of the formerly incarcerated, which is a little different than you would see normally in programs where people go to school and learn about individuals who have had challenges, and then they make decisions about what's best for those people without ever having had the experience. We're trying to shift that paradigm and hear from the voices of the people who have that authentic experience and know what that population needs. So in the interest of time, I'm gonna be quiet and pass the mic to the woman who, without this just does not happen. Without her, we're not here. She's been very supportive from the time that she's come to the Merritt College campus in the first meeting that I had with her. And we've talked about how we can further the interests and the success rates of the formerly incarcerated students of Merritt College and the Alameda County community at large. And that would be the president of Merritt College, who I'd like to welcome to the podium now, Dr. Marie-Elaine Burns. Dr. Burns.
Good morning. I'm so glad to see all of you here. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and students and administrators of Merritt College, welcome to Merritt College. As many of you probably know, Merritt is steeped in social justice and social change. As many of you know, the Black Panther Party was basically born at Merritt College. And so Merritt has a history of social justice interest and genuine interest in the community. So today is a wonderful day because we're bringing the community, we're bringing in community-based organizations and our members to let you know that Merritt is open, is here to support, is here to do whatever we can do to make our community viable, to make our community feel valued. And the formerly incarcerated are our community. And so we welcome you to the campus. We welcome you to really pay attention and listen to the workshops that will be presented today. You have some fantastic speakers. Listen to what they're saying, how they've avoided some of the obstacles and barriers that are put up in front of them. But know that Merritt is here. As Mr. Moss mentioned, we have a program here, the COSER program, that is one of our largest programs on campus, one of the best programs in community colleges that is here for the total support and looking forward and creating pathways for our formerly incarcerated community members. So I want to first welcome you, and I want to let you know that Merritt College is always here for you. We will continue to do great work together. We're looking forward to that work, and also want to say to you, enjoy today and tomorrow because there's some significant issues. I'm looking at the prison, that used to be called the school to prison pipeline. I've written about that. I've talked to folks all over the valley because I came from San Jose City College about that when they almost earmark third graders and say, they're going to prison, we don't need to work with them. You, the COSER program, the Street Scholars, the Gamble Institute, Merritt College, and Peralta District is going to change all of that. So together, we will work together, and I welcome you and hope you enjoy what you learned today, and we're going to bring this further out into the community, and we're going to continue the social justice initiatives that the Black Panthers started here many years ago at Merritt College. So thank you for that. Next, I'd like to introduce to you our leader, our Chancellor of the Peralta Community College District, Dr. Jowel Laguerre.
I am very happy to be with you today, and I want to say thank you to Ron because every movement needs to have a face, every movement needs to have a leader. somebody who's really passionate about it, whereby what the person does doesn't really depend on a job description, does not depend on the level the person has or the salary the person has, but rather the heart that the person has for the particular endeavor. And I think that we find that in Ron very much, and he makes me a believer. Actually, he doesn't give me a choice, but to really believe and be supportive of the programs that we are doing for formerly incarcerated students. So I would like for all of us to recognize Mr. Ron Moss for the work that he's doing with everybody. Secondly, I would like to acknowledge the fact that the community college serves as the doors to second opportunities, because many of us, many in our society, do not have the chance to do what they need to do in order to get their lives where they want them to be. Because of circumstances, of things that happen, something is robbed from them, and therefore they cannot get to where they need to be. We pride ourselves as community colleges throughout America as where one can come and get a second opportunity, and an opportunity that can really get you as far as you want to get. So I want to thank the organizations that are partnering with us to make sure that we provide the access to that second opportunities to many in our community who really need and deserve that so that they can get to where they need to be. I was made a firm believer in providing opportunities for formerly incarcerated individuals when I met a particular student from Solano Community College, where I used to be a president. Earl Taylor would tell you that he ended up at Solano Community College because he was evading his probation officer. So he came to the college to hide away from his probation officer, and then somebody saw him and roaming, and then she said, "May I help you?" And he was scared. His reading level wasn't high. His math was definitely not there at all. Barely graduated from high school. Before we knew it, Earl and several other African-American young men started the Black Scholars Program at Solano Community College. Next month, Earl Taylor is graduating from San Francisco State University with a degree in mathematics, and he's going to be teaching mathematics in high school. So this is the type of results that we can really get when we provide the love, the respect, the opportunities that are necessary to individuals who really need it. Often we may think that we want to be nice to people, and therefore we may give them some money to get somewhere, or a part-time job or something. When we provide the gift of education to anyone, the sky is the limit. And I'm going to end with my personal story. It's a long story. I'm 61 years old, and I can give you a story for every year that I've lived, but I'm only going to share with you just in 30 seconds the fact that I was born in a village in Haiti where we had no school. And it was somebody who saw me when I was already 8 years old, and who said to my parents, I'd love for you to send this boy to school with my kids in the city. And because of the fact that this person provided that opportunity for me. Today, I am the Chancellor of Peralta Community College. There is no other way it would have happened without an education. So education is the best gift we can give to anyone. So thank you so much for being our partner. I think somewhere I was supposed to introduce the mayor. Say again? The mayor is at a meeting where I'm supposed to be. Actually, the meeting is on my phone right now. I'm listening. Sorry. The mayor is wonderful, and she's very supportive of what we do. So on behalf of the mayor, I say congratulations and welcome.
Thank you so much to the Chancellor and the President. We are deeply touched by your support for this event and providing us with this beautiful space for the next 2 days to come together. So again, for those of you who came in, I'm Catherine Catcher. I'm the Executive Director of Root and Rebound. And up next, we're going to get started with the programming. I'm really excited to introduce Marvin Much, who is an incredible community activist. Marvin can tell you a little bit more about him, but he has been working basically for the last month, night and day, to make this, with Root and Rebound, to make this event possible. And this is someone who served 41 years in prison and got out a year ago. And the level at which he works, his commitment to this issue, his brilliance is really bar none. And I've been very humbled to have his support for our organization and for this event. And I just want to say thank you so much to Marvin. And you are an incredible person, and we know you're, after 41 years incarcerated and 1 year out, you are going places, and we can't wait to support you in whatever you need from us. So thank you for being a friend to our organization and a mentor to me. So come on up, Marvin.
Well, I'm here today. I didn't prepare any remarks. As she told you, I did a lot of time. And in the joint, you learn to leap and learn how to fly on the way down. So tell you a little bit about myself. In 1974, when I was a young teen, I was arrested in Alameda County and tried and convicted for first-degree murder. I went to San Quentin. While I was in the county jail, it was a very emotional time for me. I was scared. I was unsure about what was going to happen in the future. And during this time, I became very interested in a story that was circulating around the jail grapevine about your keynote speaker today. And I became very interested in his story and how he came to be this remarkable activist at such a young age. And it inspired me. One of the things that saved me going forward is that I was at once scared and sad that I was leaving the world. But I was looking forward to meeting this incredible person I heard about. And so the trial lingered, and they sent me to a guidance center for some tests to see if I should be sentenced as a juvenile or an adult, whether I should go to YA or should I go to state prison. At the end of that process, which was several months, I returned before the judge, and he sent me to San Quentin. I entered San Quentin and tried to establish myself, and immediately I started asking about Watani, and they said, well, he's on a family visit. I said, yeah, when's he going to get back? He went on that family visit last year. So I was, again, sad that I wasn't going to meet this person that I had obsessed on for so long. I joined the Prisoners Union in 1975. I became an organizer and an activist. I started going to the law library. I spent every day of 40 years in that law library. When the Prisoners Union imploded in 1977, we took the platform for the Prisoners Union as it existed, and created the Men's Advisory Council. And the first thing we had to do is petition the courts to allow us to have elections. I wanted to have representatives. Everybody in the cell blocks would be able to vote on who their representatives would be, and we would be able to negotiate with the administration on what our needs and our rights were. And so after a long, lengthy trial in Marin, the institution was told to let us have elections. I was elected to the first council in the state, and every year I was reelected to chair that council for 38 years. We now have men's advisory councils in all 33 institutions. We decided to change the advocacy from the outside in and advocate from the inside out. At the height of our organization and the population in the CDC, we represented the collective grievances of 174,000 prisoners. And it was a heady responsibility, but it kept me from despairing in my situation. I think this is a good point to tell you that I was wrongfully convicted. And so when I first went to the parole board and they wanted me to admit to my crime, I couldn't do that. And so I went to 22 board hearings eventually. And I was found suitable on 2 occasions. Governor Davis reversed one of my suitability findings, and Arnold Schwarzenegger reversed my second one the day before I was supposed to leave prison. And it wasn't until 10 years later, the Post-Conviction Justice Project at USC and the Golden Gate University Innocence Project had teamed up with Morrison and Forrester and were able to convince the parole board, after a 5-hour actual innocent presentation, that I should be released pending further legal action. And Governor Brown let me go last February. The 20 years between 1975 and 1994, when I was with the Men's Advisory Council, and we were doing what we needed to do to try and get medical care and a college program into San Quentin, and the food fixed, and just basic human needs and dignity for the prisoners. I did this without my friend. Again, as with everything related to my relationship with Watani, in 1994, I met Watani, and I was at once elated that I met this person that I thought about for 20 years, and then I was sad because he was here with me. And for the next 20 years, we ran around San Quentin and became very good friends, and he's been an inspiration to me in all I do. I had a very dear friend, a lifelong friend named John Irwin. He was a convict in the 1950s. He got out, and he was one of the original members in the Prisoners Union. He got out of prison after doing a 5-to-life sentence for armed robbery, and he became a tenured professor at San Francisco State for 27 years. He's one of the few convict criminologists that existed in this country. He died 6 years ago, but he was my lifelong friend and mentor from 1975 until he died 6 years ago. And he too was in awe of Watani, and I'm looking forward to hearing his story. I'm glad I'm sitting in the audience today. Although I know it by heart, I love to listen to him talk. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Watani and hope that you listen to what he says, because it's important. It's an important part of history and a story that needs to be told. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin, for that warm introduction. It's really amazing that I'm here because of my story, to end up in, meeting Erica Huggins for one, and then ending up in the Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seals Hall is it's an interesting journey, amazing almost. As you say, my name is Watani Stiner, and just 2 years ago, I was a California prisoner serving a life sentence. And although I spent 26 years behind the walls of San Quentin, The last time that I walked the streets of this country as a free man was in 1969. Now, that's probably older than many of you sitting here. Well, a little bit about my story. My life began in the Jim Crow South in Houston, Texas. I remember the segregated world that I was born into. The separate water fountains, the back of the bus, going around to the back door of Mr. Fontenot's grocery store to buy milk and bread for my mother and my grandmother. You know, I even remember this segregated beach. I remember they had this net that's separating the whites from the black. And as a child, I used to get real close to the net and watch on the other side. And I used to watch the white kids play in the sand. And for me, as a child, it seemed like they was having so much more fun playing as whites than we could ever as Negroes. I grew up in a real deeply religious family. I was a Catholic. And I believe that the only way you can get to heaven is to say your prayers, obey God's commandment, and to stay in your place. This is the world that I was into. This was the world that I was, as a child, saw as the reality. I mean, for me as a child, to drink from the white fountain was not discriminatory or any kind of segregation. It was a sin to do so. It was a sin to sit in the front of the bus. It was a sin to go to the front door of Mr. Fontenot's grocery store. Now, I was just 7 years old when my mother took us on that Greyhound bus from Houston, Texas to California, straight to Watts. A whole new world, removed from grandmother's praying hands, her protected morality, and I was into another world. I was just 3 months into my 17th birthday when I married my high school sweetheart. I graduated from high school. I had a well-paying job at a major aircraft company, and I was about to become the proud father of my first son. That was Larry Joseph Stiner, Jr. All I needed to be this upstanding citizen was a house, a white picket fence, and an obedient dog. I was gonna be your next Huxtable. But then something happened. Something happened that would change my life forever. There was a revolt taking place all across this country in 1965. And I watched on television as the dogs and the water hoses were being turned loose on nonviolent protesters in the South, and it filled me with rage. I didn't want to be like my mother and Martin Luther King, who turned the other cheek. I wanted to be a part of a more confrontational movement to end racial discrimination in this country. So I sided with other young men and young people of my generation. We didn't want to turn the other cheek. We looked to Malcolm X, who said, freedom by any means necessary. So I looked for organizations I can become a part of. How can I express my rage and my passion? And I found an organization in Los Angeles, and that was the US organization, which was a black cultural nationalist organization at the time. And at that time, like today, people call for Black Lives Matter. Well, our call was for black power. And black power was self-determination, self-respect, and self-defense. So eventually I enrolled in the UCLA. And there was a thrust for a Black Studies department, a Black Studies program on the campus. Now, as you know, up here this way, that the first Black Studies program was started at San Francisco State. Well, at that time, in 1968 and early 1969, there was a move. There was two organizations on campus. The organization I belonged to, which was the US organization, and there was the Black Panther Party. How many of you heard of the Black Panthers? Yes. Well, the Black Panther Party and the US organization had ideological differences, like other organizations. But the differences was ideological. there was a move to try to decide who was going to be the director of the program. That led at a meeting that was called for, try to come up with a criteria for the Black Studies Department. And the US organization, the Black Panthers, had this ideological difference, was escalated into a conflict on campus between a male member of the US organization and a female member of the Black Panthers. A shooting took place on campus. I was wounded in the shoulders, and 2 Black Panthers were shot and killed. John Jerome Huggins and Al Prentice Bunchy Carter. Now, I didn't have a weapon at that time, and I still was arrested, tried, and convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. The DA was able to weave together a conspiracy theory that sent me to prison, me and my brother to prison for life. 5 years later, my brother and I escaped from San Quentin State Prison. And I fled the country to South America, where I lived for 20 years. I raised a family, met my wife there, raised a family. And because of the political situation in the country, they had a military coup in the Civil War, and I had 7 children and a wife at that time. I voluntarily surrendered. I said that I would waive extradition if they would allow my wife and children safe passage to the United States. Of course, they agreed, they signed the agreement, and as soon as I got back, they put more chains on me and locked me up in solitary confinement. And then I got a letter from the State Department saying that, I'm sorry, we don't negotiate with fugitives, and therefore we can't honor this agreement. And my wife and children were left in South America for the next 11 years. Now, my decision to try and stand up to the rights and dignity of my people cost me not only in terms of the years that I had to spend in prison and in exile, but in the emotional and spiritual devastation it has caused my children. This is what I want to talk to you this morning about. This is what is too often missing in the conversation we're having about the impact of mass incarceration in this country. The immeasurable cost of millions of children who have been separated from their mothers and fathers. When we have a criminal justice system that does not take into consideration the broken lives of children, we only perpetuate and guarantee that more and more of our children will be criminalized. Sadly and tragically, we live in a society that considers our children as collateral damage of the criminal justice system. What are we doing as a society or faith-based community to repair that damage? What does your faith or conscience say about prisoners? I've served 26 years within the criminal justice system, separated from 2 families. The family I left as a young man seeking to change the world, and the family I agreed to surrender my freedom for so that they might have a better life in this country. Because I had an impossible choice, sacrifice my own freedom or sacrifice my family, I was not there when they needed me most. I feel it is necessary to highlight my story, which is only one story of many. And in my attempt to share my story, I do not excuse nor do I ignore the victims who have suffered at the hands of cruel and sometimes heinous acts. But what I wish to offer you is the broader perspective. One of the reasons I wanted to tell you this story about my family is because I assume that most of you are or should be. involved in social justice work and have a strong desire to see real change in the world. I want to speak to the brokenness and division that can happen within families, and the conflict and lack of healing that impedes relationships. This is not just about the prison work. It is much more about the spiritual work. Children are suffering, regardless of what the prisoner who is suffering, is that child's mother or father has done or not done. The whole point of having a justice system is to protect the innocents. And literally millions of innocent children are the ones who become the victims of the punitive system we have created. When I was in prison, after 2 decades, I had always imagined that the most difficult challenge for me upon my release would be the technology. I figured I had to learn how to use the cell phone, the latest computer, and all the latest gadget. That was a challenge. But once I was released from prison, I was confronted with a different reality, a reality I was totally unprepared for. That was the relationship I had to reestablish with my children. I had no idea of the damage that my absence from their lives have caused, the hurt, the open wounds. You see, prison provides a buffer between you and your relationship with your children. You write letters, you have brief phone calls, you tell each other you love each other, but you don't really know or understand what life is like for them. Once you are out of prison, especially after many years, you are confronted with all of the anger, the pain that begins to show itself in various and unexpected ways. My children long to see me free. One of my daughters even had plans to become a lawyer so that she could be the one to get me released. I got out before that. Yet, once I was free, you cannot imagine how much anger I was confronted with. You see, I had assumed that because I voluntarily surrendered for the safety and welfare of my children, then there would be some sense of understanding that they would mostly just feel grateful and then happy when we were reunited. Oh, how wrong I was. I did not take into consideration that regardless of what story I had told myself about why I came back to prison, it does not negate the suffering and the real sense of abandonment they had to endure in my absence. I had to reacquaint myself with my children, and that was not easy. My separation from them had left deep wounds that were not easily healed. They were casualties of the criminal justice system. There are millions of children who are collateral damage and need healing in this country. How can we as a society and within our activists and faith-based community do our part in not only challenging and changing the system that has wreaked havoc on families, but find ways to do the long, slow, painful work of walking alongside those who have suffered, those who have endured unimaginable losses. There are 100 ways to enter into this work. Root and Rebound is one. I call upon each and every one of you to be open to what the God of your understanding may be asking of you to participate in these labors of love. Thank you for listening to my story, receiving my message, and welcome to Root and Rebound Empowerment Summit for formerly incarcerated students and family.
So thank you so much to Watani. We at Root and Rebound are really excited that Watani is our newest board member. So he's now my boss, and I've never been more excited to work for someone. He's been an inspiration, a mentor, a friend. Anyone who comes to know him just, respects him tremendously, and we're just so excited to have you officially as part of our team at Root and Rebound.